Hey, it's Chad from the Polishing School again, located here in lovely Sacramento, California. Today we're going to talk about compounding and pads and different liquids with different pads.
What's the first beginner pad all detailers should be aware of?
Probably just a simple middle of the road polish, light cut pad, not too aggressive, not too soft. Super soft pads aren't going to accomplish a whole ton. Everybody looks at this stuff right here, the liquids, as being the most important thing. It's not. It's actually the pad that this whole surface is touching the vehicle at all times. So pads are very, very key, very, very important. We teach you in the polishing school class. We learn this, or this is how the IDA does it. They're non-biased to any brand. They just want you to know products no matter what brand you go with. Okay, and if you were to hold these two bottles, this is full throttle polish from P&S. Tells you how aggressive it is. It's about a medium polish. And then this is ballistic compound, which is P&S's most heavy duty compound. Just by picking up the weight of these bottles will tell you which one's more aggressive. So if there was no labeling on it, you would know right away, as long as the product was the same, and maybe this one wasn't half full and this one was full, all things being considered the same, you're gonna feel the weight difference. The heavier product is going to be your more aggressive cutting compound. They actually do this in the IDA. They want you to polish a car and they give you all the pads that are blank. They don't tell you what they do, and you're supposed to assess the vehicle and then know what it's gonna need. So on a newer vehicle, you're not gonna go to some heavy aggressive compound and a nasty cut pad. So they want you to know that, and pads, how you feel those or tell which ones they are, is the cut pads are gonna be more stiff and rougher on the surface than say a polishing pad. You're gonna see the density of that one smush versus that one, okay? And that will tell you which one's a cut pad, polish pad, and then you go from there with your combination. But the key is that you don't wanna ruin something and go, oh man, I think it's this one, and I'm gonna use heavy because I don't know, I think, and then create a ton of micro scratching and marring and just make the vehicle worse and create more work for yourself. That's when you will have to work those 7 days a week. We don't want that to happen. So the other thing is different brand products. Rupes here has their system. This doesn't mean that this guy is gonna be the same level of pad. This is a buff and shine pad, and this is their heavy polishing pad. Rupes's blue pad is a heavy cut pad. So you can't pay attention to colors. This isn't, electrical wiring where there's only 3 wires and everybody has to use the same color. This is car polishing, not nearly as important as electricity itself. So at the end of the day, you want to know what you're dealing with, because then you understand what's needed and you're not just reading labels and expecting it to do certain things, because everybody has a different meaning for heavy cut, light cut. One company might think one pad's a heavy cut and the next company is going to say that's a light cut, we make a heavy cut.
What does cut and polish mean?
So compounding or cutting is getting rid of the imperfections, and what we're actually doing is removing clear coat. We're not filling a scratch, we're not painting, but paint's measured in 32 thousandths of an inch, which is almost like the thickness of a piece of paper. So ever so slightly, we're just rubbing off some material so that that scratch is actually gone away. That's the simplest form that I can explain it, okay? And polishing is getting the paint to reflect and sometimes jewel in the light to where you can't see any of the light scratches created by the first step. So polishing is fine correction. Cutting is bigger correction when you're actually taking out scratches or imperfections or stuff like that. Polishing is refining the first step, or if the car is brand new, you're just throwing on a polish. We call it level out, paint enhancement, something like that. A full-blown paint correction is going to involve at least 2 steps: cutting, polishing.
Let's say a customer says, hey, my car has some scratches from the car wash. Can you remove them? And as a detailer, what should they say and what process should they use?
Well, depending on the vehicle, they're going to look at possibly a 2 or 3 step process, okay? How deep are the scratches? We always teach to troubleshoot. We always want to take the most main part of the vehicle, which is the hood, and test a couple of different products, okay? And what I mean by that is don't have 7 different compounds from 6 different companies. Have your compound polish and maybe 2 others that you can go to. Some paint is soft, some paint is hard. You got to start knowing your vehicles too. For example, we have a new General Motors vehicle. I already know that the paint that they use is soft as tissue paper. What that means is this polish might act like a compound, okay? But give this vehicle 3 years to sit and cure in the sun, and now we're ready to get to it. But to answer your question, every vehicle is going to be different. You might be able to do a one-step and look like a hero. It's like peeling back layers of an onion. You might do one pass with a one-step and go, oh my goodness, today's my lucky day. I'm going to look like a hero. I'm going to only have to go around this car one time. And then some days it's not your lucky day, and you're going to have to peel back that onion halfway down and go, man, now I got to build it back up. Because I can tell you this, folks, as soon as you go to some heavy compound with a heavy compound or cut pad, you're in for at least 2 to 3 steps. If it's black, probably 3 steps, because now you got to polish out the buffer haze, we call it, out of correcting the scratches. So that's why we don't want to create more work for ourselves if we don't have to. We troubleshoot, we test spot, and we see what the lightest will do. If it does absolutely nothing, oh well, it's not our lucky day. We got to get a little more aggressive until we can get that paint looking great. Now, again, it goes back to what is the customer willing to pay? If the customer just wants you to do a one stage because that's what's in their budget, and they don't care about the vehicle because it's their commuter, but they really can't handle it being that bad, but it's also not going to Autorama, it's all about their money. It's not you being a charity and going, I'm going to give you a 3-step process, a 3-step correction, and you're going to pay me for running a Harbor Freight orbital over the car. So it doesn't work that way. You don't show up to Sizzler and expect them to go get the steak at Ruth Chris.
A lot of detailers, they want to do polishing to make that extra money. But give us that quick tip, something that they should know before jumping into this.
Don't overcomplicate things. Trust your eyes. In theory, a lot of times you're supposed to do 2 to 3 steps. We've seen it more and more where somehow something doesn't go right with the second step and it doesn't look as good. Just because something in theory means something doesn't mean it's really that. One of the best in the business is Todd from Rupus. He was just here about 2 months ago. He can explain all that because of his engineering and degrees, and that's way above my head, but he's really one of the best at putting it into layman's terms for a lot of guys to learn. So there's a lot of people in this industry with tons and tons of knowledge that you always want to talk to, but the number one thing that I would go for is keep it simple. You don't need to immediately get into polishing and go buy 12 products of each. I will recommend though, when you're doing DA polishing, heat is a killer of pads. So if you buy one of these pads to start out, I would have at least 2, probably 3. And the reason being is because we want to rotate the pads. You want to do one section, like let's say this fender. We do a fender with one pad and then we switch to the next yellow pad and we do half the hood and then we go right back to the, it's like rotating guys in a sporting, in like a basketball game. People got to take breathers, so do the pads. So keep it simple, find your compounds. You're always going to make the car look 100 times better. Just don't think you're going to get every little scratch out, and don't tell the customer you're going to. With anything in life, over deliver and under promise, right? So keep it simple and don't think you're going to be some crazy high-end polisher in day 3.
Now, one thing I hear that a lot of detailers tell their customers, we're gonna get 80 to 90% of the scratches. Do you feel that's the right thing to say, or should they do less?
I think that would come down to it's kind of one of those, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's, well, how many steps am I doing for that 80%? You know, what is the customer's budget? I mean, if they say, well, how much does a 1-step get out, 2-step, 3-step? You got to look at the vehicle. There's no standard operating procedure when it comes to polishing. So therefore, every vehicle is going to be different. And just like everything else in detailing, we're trying to hit that $100 an hour range. So if I got to go around this car, every time I go around the truck, it's an hour and a half, that's $150. So we'll call it laps around the car. So if I make 3 laps, how much money is that?
3 laps.
That's $450. It's all subjective, guys. Don't ever promise something. Communication with your customer is key. Do that test spot on the hood. Be honest with the customer. You know, once I get going into it, my expertise, my eye it looks like I should be able to do such and such and such and such. But until you start working on it and polishing it, every paint's different. So always leave yourself an out to the customer and go, well, you know, Mr. Customer, you're going to need a 3-step process if you want 90% out, and this is the price.
What if there's someone out there who wants that hands-on training? What can they do?
They can reach out to us at the polishing school and come down to our training facility that we're standing in right now and come down, and it's limited to 4 people. And we put the buffer in your hands, or I should say the Rupus or whatever DA we have, and we work with you. And the way I teach the class is kind of a baseball analogy. You're not gonna be able to hit the ball unless you can swing the bat, and you're not gonna be able to hit a home run unless you can hit the ball. So we work in steps. I get guys all the time in this class that have never held a machine in their life, and by the time they leave here, they know how to do a 2 to 3 step process. Maybe not the best yet, because I can't give you experience in 3 hours or 4 hours, but they have the confidence to leave here to operate the polishing machine and be comfortable with operating that polishing machine. Once they're comfortable operating the machine, that's when they can go out and get the results on the paint that they're looking for. They can go to the website, thepolishingschool.com. They can go to our Instagram page, and the schedule is on the Instagram, or you can just DM us on Instagram, email us, and we'll be more than happy to answer any more questions you might have. We're a personable, small company. So normally when you get the phone number, it's my number. I answer the phone, and I'll talk to you about the class. And if you guys liked what you learned today and this information, drop it in the comments below. Any questions, let me know. And also, we'd love to hear in this detailing community any things you guys have experienced out there on your own polishing. Comment, like us, follow us, and keep watching for more content on polishing.